Good afternoon and welcome. This is stage one of the PostNord Denmark Rundfart, or the Tour of Denmark, as we call it in English. A quick glance at today's stage. Start and finish are in Aalborg, 169.9 kilometers. We have 3 climbs of the second and first category, 2 intermediate sprints and 1 Sparkassen 100-kilometer sprint, and then 3 local circuits of 11.5 kilometers. Quite well known to most of the peloton, because this is where the Danish National Championships were this year, and I believe also last year. Official start here on the Nibberweg in Aalborg, and attacks straight away by many of the Danish continental teams. And this is the breakaway we ended up with. 6 riders. There we are in the streets of Nidde for the first sprint. That was won by Niklas Pedersen. Christian Ekholm in second place, Sebastian Grignard in third. And then we also have King of the Mountains coming up in Høiris. There it is. It's a Cat 2. These climbs are very short, 500 meters, 6.6% average. Climb of the second category. So the first one across the line gets the 6 points, and that is Wessel Krul of the Netherlands, of the Human Powered Health team. And we have another sprint coming up, and a crash here with the Danish national champion, Mathias Skelmose. He became Danish national champion on that circuit in Aalborg. Needs some assistance there from the mechanic at Lidl Trek. Gets a new bike there. Next sprint is another Skoda sprint in Suldrup. And a big battle going on here. And it's the man of Restaurant Suri Kalras getting him. And that's Christian Ekholm ahead of Filippo Ridolfo and Sébastien Grignard. So, Tour of Denmark, stage 1. We've got 5 stages in total. This race that's been around for a long time. 1985 was the first edition. That was won by Morena Argentin, I believe even as a world champion in that year. This is stage 1. We started in Aalborg, have our finish in Aalborg as well. And we have a breakaway of 6 riders, 3 from Denmark, 1 from Belgium, 1 from Italy, and 1 from the Netherlands. As we have 1 man up the road, that's Mats Christensen of the Leopard TOGT team. And the other 5 are here with number 61 of the Lotto Destiny team, Sébastien Grignard. In the colours of Team Novo Nordisk, the blue and green with 134, Filippo Rodolfo. We have Wessel Krul in the colours of Human Powered Health, Mats Østergaard. We have Christian Ekholm and Niklas Pedersen in the referee-style jersey of Colo Quick. 91.6 kilometers to go, meaning we just had our second climb. That was one of the first category, and Mats Østergaard made it very clear that he goes for the points. This has been a situation in the peloton for a long time, with Lidl Trek, with Jacopo Mosca and Julien Bernard leading the troops, because, yeah, arguably, I think they are the strongest team. That is my opinion. My name is Jose Bain. With me is Brian Smith. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Josie.
Do you think that Lidl Trek have the strongest team here?
Well, it looks as if they're here to win it, doesn't it? You know, they've got, a rider that finished 3rd last year, who we just seen crashed earlier on in the day, and they've got a very good informed Mads Pedersen. And just looking at the route here, we all know that Denmark is not that hilly, but it can be hard enough to kind of break things up. You got to remember last year, Evenepoel came here and pretty much 2 years ago, and pretty much destroyed the field. Last year it was a little bit closer, and it came to the kind of final climb up towards the finishing line. But this year we finished with the time trial. But it's clear at the front of the peloton here, you've got a couple of the world's best sprinters, namely Mads Pedersen and Fabio Jakobsen. And Soudal Quickstep are not riding, so they're leaving pretty much all of it to Lidl Trek, which means that they want to kind of sit back. I do believe they do have the strongest team here, but everybody will be kind of leaning on them to do most of the work.
Yeah, and that can also be a pitfall, of course, if everybody's looking at you. And it's a bit what happened on Sunday with Lotte Kopecky as well. But this is our leader, and he is a man who was part of our six-man breakaway, Mats Østergaard, 25 years old, part of the Leopard TOGT Pro Cycling Team, a team that's it's got an international calendar. They're not only racing in Denmark or Scandinavia, but they've got a calendar in France and Spain and Belgium as well. This is his fourth Tour of Denmark already, so he's quite an experienced rider. And he was also in the breakaway last year on stage one. Same goes for his mate, or former mate in the breakaway, Nicolas Pedersen. So quite an attacking rider. A sixth place was his best result for Mats Østergaard, and that was in 2021 when he was sixth on the fourth stage, and that was also from the breakaway. So yeah, that's the kind of guy we are looking at. In the peloton, we have our World Tour teams with Lidl Trek, Alpes in de Koning, EF Education, Soudal Quickstep, DSM Firmenich, and then our pro teams with UnoX, Lotto Destiny, Tudor are here, the Cream Project Bardiani, Bolton Equities Blackspoke, Q36.5, Human Powered Health, Flanders Baloise, Novo Nordisk, and then 6 continental teams, 5 of them from Denmark and 1 from Poland. So you will not be surprised that the biggest contingent of riders here is Danish. Look at the history of the race. Like I said, in 1985, it's more of your era there, Brian. It was a win by Moreno Argentin ahead of Kim Andersen, the sports manager, and Etienne de Wilde. And then we have wins by Phil Anderson, Bjorn Ries, Kim Andersen, Tyler Hamilton, Sørensen, all these well-known riders. Arvidsson, Basso won it, Cancellara, Fuglsang, I think 3 times is the record holder. And last year we had a podium with Christophe Laporte, Magnus Sheffield and Matthias Skelmos, and like you said, it came down to the bonus seconds there on the final stage. We do have bonus seconds this year as well, 10, 6 and 4 on the finish line, 3, 2 and 1 at the intermediate sprints, a bit like the well-known recipe for stage races. I think the highest point here is 120 meters above sea level, something like that, in the entire race.
Yeah, it's not overly hilly, but it can be hard. You got to remember that in this part of the world, the wind blows a little bit. Luckily for them, it's a southwesterly, about 13 kilometres an hour, so it's going to kind of help them majority in towards the finish. But the wind does blow. We traditionally in the past have a very kind of hilly kind of last stage, which can split up a little bit. But saying that, Laporte won it on the final stage to kind of ramp up towards the line last year. So you just round off a lot of different types of riders there. There was kind of time trial specialists, there was sprinters. So, the routes every year kind of changes a little bit, but predominantly it suits, if there's a time trial in it, obviously it suits, somebody with a good time trial. It also suits kind of punchy rider. So I think this year it suits more the kind of punchy rider with a good time trial. And there's one man that sticks out. He happens to be Danish. He's won the World Championship in the past, and he finished 4th in the recent World Championships in Glasgow, and that's Mats Pedersen.
Most definitely. As the rain is coming down, such lovely summer weather here in Denmark. We are in the far north of the country, in Jutland, which is, if you look at the shape of Denmark, that little tip at the absolute top. Aalborg, the 3rd biggest town in Denmark, of course, after Aarhus, Copenhagen, and I forgot the 3rd one, but I'll get back to that a little bit later. We have national champions at the start line. Not this team, this is the national team, with riders like Julius Johansson, Alexander Salvi, Rasmus Pedersen, fresh off the track in Glasgow. where he won the gold, of course, with the team pursuit. This is absolutely abysmal. Poor guy.
Somewhere in Denmark. Here was me thinking
Yay.
that, you know, covering some of the events at the World Championships in Glasgow, that, you know, everybody says it rains in Glasgow, it rains in Scotland. Well, it's raining here in Denmark, but it's not overly cold. But yeah, just kind of tricky conditions. And let's see, it's a kind of strange move, I think. You know, here we're seeing the 20 degrees. As I said, it's not overly difficult. But the way that he's riding this, he went on the attack in the first category climb to gain the maximum points. He continuing this, still a long way to the goal.
.8 kilometers to go. Beautiful part of the world. Maybe not so much today, but we still have that one leader by the name of Miss Østergaard. The 5 chasers with an Italian rider, Filippo Rodolfo. He is from Udine. Is a rider of the Novo Nordisk team, of course, a Danish brand, and they are a sponsor here of the race, a sponsor of the hill climber classification. The Danish don't even call it the King of the Mountains, because they see the understatement in that as well. So it's basically the King of the Hills here instead of the King of the Mountains.
I would argue that fact, and in case myself and Sean Kelly talk about that, and you know, we talk about, you know, when we used to race with each other, and back in Ireland when I had the King of the Mountains jersey, and he stopped me right in my tracks and went, King of the Hills. And I went, okay. So I would say that, you know, in Britain and Ireland and maybe Denmark, you could say, you know, in many other countries it's the King of the Hills. When do we get the King of the Mountains? Mountains, as we know, are Pyrenees, the Alps, the Dolomites. You know, there's many other kind of mountain ranges, but for the majority of us, you know, a hill's a hill. And, you know, I would take the King of the Hills or the King of the Mountains any day.
It sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? King of the Hills. Reminds me of a song of the Pokes, Ned of the Hills. Anyways, horrible weather circumstances as we make our way to the last King of the Hills. That is 5 kilometers from now, and I think that is the ambition of this man, to get the points at that climb that is at 80 kilometers from the finish. It's called the Krittbakken. It's 600 meters long, 6.8% average. It gets you another 6 points, and that means that he gets that polka dot jersey here, which is white and green. But look at the rain is basically coming almost horizontally. The wind, you can see it, is coming from the side there, and it's absolutely horrible weather for the riders. But it makes for nice green scenery, Brian.
Yes, you know,
there's an upside to things.
Yeah, Denmark does get rain, Britain gets rain, you know, a lot of the kind of northern, kind of Scandinavian, European countries get rain. We kind of missed out. Okay, I'm in Spain at the moment, but where it's about 32 degrees, but recently there was a big kind of heat wave. I think Britain missed out in it, unfortunately for Greece. You know, they
So
had to
did we.
kind of really suffer. But I think they'll kind of welcome this kind of bit of kind of rain. Maybe not these conditions for this young man in the lead. Like you said, Jose, completely 100% going for the King of the Mountains competition. He finished third in the first one. He won the first cat there, and continuing this effort to try and take another one, which finishes in 3.7 kilometres time at 80 kilometres to go. So that's the only reason he would do this. He's trying to kind of hold on. He wants to get on the podium. Often we see this in a lot of these races, that you get in the breakaway with a plan in mind, and it's clear that Østergaard's plan is to take the King of the Mountains jersey today.
And it's important, as we often stress, for the smaller teams in races like this, to get yourself a trip to the podium, to be up there, to have a distinctive jersey. We've got 4 here, but there are 6 prizes every day. We also have a sprint called the Sparkassen 100 kilometer sprint that comes, surprise, surprise, after 100 kilometers into the stage. You do get a jersey, but you don't get to wear it. We now can have a look, as we have so much water on the road as it is at our riders. Looks like the man at the front is Christian Ekholm and got himself a bike that belonged to his brother last year, Jakob Ekholm from the Trek Segafredo team back then. We also have Grignard, the 24-year-old from Belgium for Lotto Destiny. Filippo Rodolfo, I mentioned him of the Novo Nordisk team, an Italian. He's only 21, but not the youngest. That is Christian Ekholm. And then we have Niklas Pedersen of the Colo Quit team, and that is the team in the referee style jerseys. Been a team that's been around for a while and have brought riders to the Pro and World Tour in the past. Of course, Denmark, very strong country at the moment in the world. The Danish junior champion, the world champion is Danish. Both in mountain biking and road racing, just 16 years age, very, very young, but very promising talent there from Denmark.
Oh, it's brilliant. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go up to Glasgow to meet a few of my old teammates and friends. One of the managers of the Danish team is a guy called Brian Bistrup. He moved away from, living in the kind of Copenhagen area over to Luxembourg, where he's kind of brought up his family. So he did a bit of a road trip before he came to Glasgow. I just didn't have the time to meet these guys, so I kind of missed out a little bit. But yeah, they've done wonders, and the caption just came up with Christensen there, just to give him his full name. Mads Østergaard Christensen is the rider in the front. Just to confirm that when we're saying Østergaard, we're naming the right rider. But yeah, he's just kind of turning on to this climb now. You take maximum points, and I think the only person that can get close to him is Pedersen behind, who's won the first one and was third in the first category. But if he gets maximum points here, it looks like he'll be on the podium. Like you say, Josie, this is very important for these teams. It's not just, maybe in a smaller race they would not do this. It's because, and I've done exactly this in races. I talked about it with the Nissan Classic with Sean Kelly and Tour of Britain and these different races. It's important to get your name out there and recognised. You've got to remember that there are World Tour teams here. And in the past, it was more important for that to happen, because we never had GCN or Discovery Plus to watch it wherever you are in the world. You had to get noticed by the teams at that races, and then someone would call the team owner and say, this guy's riding well here in this race. Nowadays, that doesn't happen because we've seen so much racing on. In fact, this week, there's Burgos, there's Limousin, there's a lot of races on at the moment. So trying to keep track of everything. And this is what the managers do. The managers, if you're a good manager, you watch a lot of these races, see the talent, get the information for your sport directors at these races, and that's why a lot of this kind of young talent. And this is what they're trying to do: just make a name for yourself, get your name out there, and get noticed.
We're on the final categorised climb of today with our lone leader, Mads Østergaard. Looks like the rain is letting off a little bit as we are on Kridtbakken, and bakken is basically the Danish word for street, as an indicator of this climb. Here are our chasers with very small gear there for Sébastien Grignard in the colours of Lotto Destiny. They welcomed a rider back to their team today, Harm van Hoeken, who had been part of their team, the development setup as well, returned to Lotto Destiny after only 8 months with the DSM team. He had high hopes of being part of the DSM team, and after 8 months they mutually agreed that their future was not one that would be together. So he returned to his former team, not racing here of course, but he will soon be cleared. This is a moment where, if the two teams agree, you can have a mid-season transfer. Although, Brian, mid-season transfers hardly happen these days. Though it is possible if the two teams agree.
If they agree, yes, it can happen. You can break a contract at any time. There is only one. I think it's still in place at the moment. It's a rule because we rarely see it. I thought it was in the first 2 weeks of June, just confirming that maximum points there for our man in the lead there. That's Mads Østegård Christensen. It used to be the first couple of weeks of June. When I was kind of managing a team, you could have a mid-season transfer. Of course, there's a few riders in here that have come as stagiaires. Stagiaires coming from kind of development teams and getting the chance to ride a race like this with one of the World Tour teams. But we know that in the past that has happened mid-season. It's happened with Ron Dennis in the past, where he kind of swapped teams. So as long as it's mutual, it's fine. But just gives you an indication. You say that the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes when things are not right in your team, and you look at another team, they maybe offer you a little bit more money. Oof, there's a bit of a puddle in that corner. Don't ride through puddles. You never know what's underneath. So you always think, somebody offers you more money, because Harm van Hoek, I think it was the Giro d'Italia a few years ago, he really rode well. He had the white jersey, young rider, and made a name for himself, and then you go to another team, maybe get paid a little bit, but you might not. No disrespect for the DSM team, but you just might not like the way they do things. You might not like maybe some of the teammates you've got, or that happens in a lot of different sports. That even in football, that we know people change teams and they don't perform as well. It happens in all sports. So maybe it was an environment that it didn't help him to prosper. He's come home, and maybe we might see, the Harm van Hoek that we thought of and, liked a few years ago.
Back to lovely, lush green scenery. As expected, Mads Østegård took maximum points there on the third and last categorized climb. But on our local circuit, which is 11.5 kilometers long, we're not there yet, it will be another 50 kilometers, but we have two pretty challenging little climbs. One is called the Svobakke Vej, which is 470 meters at 7.5%. And the other is called Nordtoft, and that is 700 meters at 3.3%. The first one about 10k out from the finish line, the second one about 5k out from the finish line. Oof. Oh, yosh. Oh.
He's got a puncture. I was just about to say, Jose, that the only problem about this amount of rain is the fact that it washes a lot of kind of grit and gravel onto the course. But unfortunately, there it does look as if he's hit a hole and he's had an impact puncture.
Yikes. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they do now, because you attacked us, you left us. Shall we wait? Maybe not.
Nah, probably not. This is the man of the Cola Quick team, Niklas Pedersen, the oldest of them all. As Østegård is back on track. Huge gear there, of course, coming down a little hill, and now has to go back going. Quick service there from the neutral service car. Unlike Christine Majerus in the women's race yesterday, or well, the day before yesterday, she went on social media being had a lot of criticism on the Shimano car, being part of the Luxembourg team, which was, I think, only 2 or 3 riders. Her team was way back. It's based on UCI ranking, and she was not very content with the service provided by Shimano. I do think that in times of stress, you can never do it right, but we don't see riders get online quite often to utter their criticism on either Shimano or, well, we've seen it in the past, of course, with SRAM as well. But this is Shimano neutral service, and she was pretty unhappy with it.
Do you know what? I saw that incident through Balfron in the women's race, and it's unfortunate. But how do you think Christophe Laporte feels? You know, in the men's race, you know, you have a mechanic who took you out. Luckily, it wasn't on the circuit. But I think, me personally, I think neutral service do a fantastic job. It's not easy. I have been in neutral service before. It's a tough job, right? But what you do, because the you don't always have the same as a team car behind, you know, all the riders in one team, apart from obviously the national team here of Denmark. They all have different equipment. But Shimano neutral service, or SRAM, or whatever neutral service it is, it's tough. You know, you jump out the car with a couple of wheels, it might, you know, you have to remember that these guys, when they see someone, because it's chaotic, there's riders out the back. You see Majerus stop for a puncture. Yeah, you see Majerus, and you have to know straight away, is it SRAM, is it Shimano, is it Campag, and you know, it's all this kind of intersecting, trying to get it out, and then the spare bikes. We saw it with Biel in the men's race that he refused the Shimano bike. Most people would do, but that was out in the course. You got to remember that, you know, these things happen. I rode the Olympics, right, in '96, and I punctured in the front group when the race was on. The race was completely on, and I punctured in the front group, and I had to wait. There was 2 neutral service cars. I had to wait to get my this is the biggest bike race, you know, every 4 years for me then. So, you know, built up to Olympics, punctured, had to wait for a neutral service car. There's only 2 cars in the race. There was gaps everywhere. Got service, went round to the pits area, and he shouted 3.5 minutes to me. Ugh. 3.5 minutes. So I went from the front of the race, within half a lap, 3.5, and race was over, right? I never complained, because that's what happens, part and parcel. I really do think that the route round Glasgow, if they do that again, they have to look at some way of service, because, you know, as soon as you punctured or a mechanic or crash and things like that, then it was always very difficult to get back to the race. It's the same when you get no laps out in a criterium race, very different. But that was out in the course, Majerus, but you've got to remember there's a lot of riders getting dropped, cars everywhere. So I think she was a little bit harsh there on just kind of pointing the finger at Shimano, because the neutral service in any race, I think, do a fantastic job under the circumstances.
Back to our breakaway of 5. Niklas Pedersen leading in the colours of Human Powered Health. We have Wessel Krul, 23-year-old from the Netherlands. And every time I try to introduce the riders in our break a little bit more in depth, they
jump away to listen to you.
They decide to go on a pan shot of the peloton. What I did notice is that Julien Bernard got a little bit of help the other day. The other shot we had by Tim de Klerk, and there he is. The Soudal Quick-Step team are here with Tim de Klerk, Mauri van Stevenant, Casper Pedersen, Michael Mørkøv, Fabio Jacobs and Joseph Czerny, and the under-23 bronze medal winner in the road race, Martin Svricek. Of course, Fabio Jacobs aims to get a stage win here, but this is his first day back in the peloton since he abandoned the Tour de France. Meanwhile, a transfer has been announced to DSM-Firmenich. We just mentioned that Belgian rider Harm van Hoeken leaves the team after 8 months, goes back to Lotto Destiny. Fabio Jacobs goes to the Dutch team. Of course, the team is known for its protocols, and Van Hoeken also mentioned that when he signed, that he's well aware of the protocols and that he's looking forward to it. But in the end, it didn't work out. But Jacobsen is going to the team for, I think, 3 seasons. So it's a big transfer. Of course, the rumours were there during the Tour de France. The Soudal Quick-Step team, they have a little bit of a change around Remco Evenepoel, as we have another mechanical problem here from the Team Pursuit world champion, Lasse Norman Hansen. Rear flat there for him. Looks very calm, waiting for the Uno X mechanic, and goes on his way again. Former stage winner also here in the Tour of Denmark, but of course well known from that phenomenal team pursuit last week on the boards of the Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome. About Soudal Quickstep, they say, yeah, we have enough. We have Tim Merlier when it comes to our sprinter, and we have Remco Evenepoel, and next year we want him to win the Tour de France, and you can't have a sprinter on the Tour de France team when you want to go for the GC. And I think that's true, Brian. If you look at Team Emirates, Jumbo-Visma, they don't have a sprinter or a sprint train. Of course, they have the likes of Laporte or Wout van Aert who can do a sprint. But having in 8-man teams, having both a sprinter with 1 or 2 riders with him and a GC team, it's not feasible anymore. So Soudal Quickstep are going on a little bit of a metamorphosis and sign off some of their top riders, including Fabio Jacobs, who says, I want to do the Tour de France again in 2024 and win stages. And I can't do that with you because you don't guarantee me a place in the Tour de France.
Top sprinters cost a lot of money. Top Grand Tour winners cost a lot of money, and you only have a limited budget, and what you need in a team, and it's a lot of money to buy not just a top GC contender or have a GC contender. Is have riders that can help and be there in the mountains. Look at the difference that Adam Yates made for Pogacar. It's huge money, and partly Lefevre always says he doesn't have the biggest budget. Obviously he's got apparently people knocking at his door for Evenepoel. So he has to keep him, and Evenepoel will demand world time trial champion now, world champion of the road last year, and he's such a quality rider, won the Vuelta last year, so he's got big, so he wants to keep him, he doesn't want to lose him. And unfortunately we are in a sport where a lot of the riders are choosing money over, we just mentioned Harm van Hooker. He knew a lot of these things, probably get paid a little bit more, but at the end of the day he's coming back because he's not performing. So there's a lot of things to contend with, and not everybody's got huge budgets in the pro peloton. And yeah, that is the case, that the top sprinters want to be at the Tour de France and the top GC guys want to be at the Tour de France. That's it. That's unfortunately that's the way that cycling is.
But the fact is that next year Fabio Jacobs is part of the DSM team, as we see that Mats Østergaard Christensen is back at the front. The reason we say Østergaard is because our friends at First Cycling, who are very knowledgeable in everything Scandinavian, mention the, I hope, correct name of the two to use. So we go with Mads Østergaard. This is Mads Pedersen. He was number 4 in Glasgow, and he also got number 4 today. And we go again with the rain. How lovely. But at least you're not drying up and then get wet again. You just stay in the exact same situation.
At least your core is keeping cool in this rain. They've all got speed suits on. They're not putting rain jackets on. It's 20 degrees. It's not overly, warm. So, or it's not cold either. So some people like these conditions. The only thing it does do is, we're seeing kind of puddles in the road. It throws some of the, debris from the side of the road onto the road. You risk puncture, but these cycling glasses that they wear nowadays, they don't have windscreen wipers. So sometimes it is very, very difficult to see. I know because I used to use
windscreen wipers,
prescription glasses, and I needed them to see. I can't put them in the back of my helmet like this lad here. So
no.
I needed them to see where I was going. So I always had problems, and I always used to wear a peaked hat, but I'd cut the top out, so I'd just have the peak to try and kind of keep the kind of rain off my glasses. Yeah, it was a difficult time to actually see in events, and most people take the glasses off because they can't see through them, but more importantly keep them on because you get kind of grit and things like that thrown in your face as well. You risk infection, conjunctivitis and various other things. So yeah, it's a very difficult situation to have, whether you wear the glasses, whether you don't.
We did miss that moment, but we saw that the breakaway was kind of falling apart. That was because we had that intermediate sprint that comes 100 kilometers or more or less. Today it's exactly 100 kilometers, and other days it might be a kilometer or two off, depending on where you can actually situate your sprint. It's called the Sparkassen 100 kilometer sprint. You get 150 euros if you win it, and you get yourself a trip to the podium. And that sprint was won, I think, because he was at the front when we went back to our first group, by Niklas Pedersen. Here we are with Lasse Norman Let Hansen. I noticed there was a little bit of confusion during the World Championships, not with Carlton and Joanna, of course, but in other countries, that the Danish Team Pursuit team had a new rider in them, in Lasse Norman Let. No, he has the name of his wife, Julie Let, of course, a fantastic track rider and bike rider herself. I know that Michael Valgren also has the name of his wife as well, but it is still Lasse Norman Hansen Let. I did notice that the Team Pursuit in Denmark in 2020 had a lineup of Hansen, Johansson, Pedersen and Larsen. So then you probably have the four most common names in the Danish language, and it can be a little bit confusing. We do have a lot of Larsen and Pedersens here as well, including Martin Pedersen, who is the brother of Mads Pedersen, and he's got himself a stagiaire contract. Brian, what is a stagiaire contract and how does it work?
Well, it's not a contract. A stagiaire, you can take on 3 stagiaires. It's riders that are riding at lower level. You can take them on as of the start of August, and you can give them opportunities in races and kind of test them out more than anything. They cannot obviously ride World Tour races, but they can ride races at this level. So it's a way of, right, you've shown us what you can do. Let's put you in a team and see how you perform before we think about giving you a contract. But what we're seeing now is this can happen throughout the year. There's some stagiaires here, but more importantly, I think the UCI rules allow just development teams to ride at any time.
Very cautiously through that turn there with Tim de Klerk at the helm of the peloton. We see a lot of flat tires because, like Brian explained, it's raining and we have all sorts of dirt and stones and what have you on the road. Here we are in Stuvering, where we had that intermediate sprint a little while ago, meaning that all the points of interest, well, not points of interest, but points that we were going to pass for points, well, have now gone, and we are making our way back to the north, back to Aalborg, where we have our local circuit. There was the sign for the waste zone, meaning that this is the moment you can throw out your wrappers and not get fined 200 francs. X are here with almost all of their Danish riders. As you might know, it's a team with Danish and Norwegian riders, since it's a company that has gas stations, but also renewable energy, sustainable energy in both Norway and Denmark. So that is, basically the two nationalities. We've seen some new riders sign, like Markus Hulgaard coming from Lidl Trek. Also some guys go, like Anton Charmik going to Astana. And especially Lidl Trek are very active at the transfer market, getting a whole array of new nationalities aboard. And I cannot help but think, Brian, that is because they want representatives of countries where they have supermarkets.
Yeah, 100% on that reason. from time to time you'll get that. Movistar went through that as well, because I was talking to Sebastian Unsway about that, and they had with the O2, I'd put a little bit of pressure on them to have representation throughout different countries. So sometimes we do have sponsors that kind of insist on that, because they're adding to the budget as well. They're looking for riders from certain countries. I've got a bit of experience of delivering teams. I built Cervelo test team on the fact that we're looking for international markets as well for Cervelo. Obviously NetApp Enduro had built, MTN Quebec had Dimension Data. So it comes with an encompass that you have to have these kind of criteria. And I remember when I kind of rebuilt teams in the past, especially MTN Quebec, we had to have certain kind of marquee riders and various other things. So it's not as easy as you think, just signing everybody.
Looks like we might have had a little bit of a problem here with Matthias Skelmose, the Danish champion. He's got support there from Dan Hole. We also have some riders here of Alpecin de Koning with Conchi, the Italian rider. 175 is Matthias Larsen. We're trying to get back. We have seen some crashes, some punctures all the way back in the neutral. Chet Haga was one of the riders who crashed. The American just announced that this is going to be his last year in the pro peloton and that he's going to shift his focus to gravel. Also, he probably doesn't have much of a chance, much of an option, because rumours are both on Escape Collective, I think, and Wielerflits, that the Human Powered Health men's team is going to end at the end of this year, meaning that, riders will be on the lookout for new teams. According to the information on Wielerflits, the women's team, which is a UCI Women's World Tour team, are going to continue. But hard news for the riders of the Human Powered Health team. They're racing here with their Polish duo, Anielkowski and Banasek. We have Stephen Bessett, of course, former winner of a stage in the Tour of Britain. Charles-Etienne Chrétien, for me, one of the most difficult names to pronounce. Chet Haga, Barnabas Peck, and Wessel Krul, who's in the breakaway, the 23-year-old from the Netherlands. One of those examples. He was an absolute top junior in his days, second at the Dutch National Championships. He was also on the podium in the under-23 time trials in 2019, won a stage in the Ronde de Lizard, ahead of Ben Healy, for example. And then for one reason or the other, in his case, an injury to the iliac artery really played a big role, which almost took him out for an entire season in 2021. That doesn't help, but he's 23 now, and this is going to be a very difficult moment in his career to get himself a contract. He doesn't really have all the results to show for it, and there will be 15 other riders of that team looking for a new squad. So hard times for these riders.
It's difficult every year, Josie, and we know. I know there's a couple of riders in this race looking for other options as well, and not the youngest. And we talked about it in other races that a lot of teams are investing in young talent, giving some of them kind of 5-year contracts, junior riders and things like that. Mm-hmm. So they're looking at, investing in the future in that way. So if you're in the kind of bracket of early 20s and you're just kind of, breaking through and you haven't broke through already, it's going to be hard. Unfortunately, I've been there myself, that when you start looking at riders, you're looking at their age, and age shouldn't really come into it. It should come down to, kind of performance and what you think you can get out of these riders. But unfortunately, we have got so many young riders producing exceptional results that unfortunately a lot of these teams are looking for young riders to develop themselves, and some of these teams have got development teams as well. So some of the kind of older riders that maybe have ridden the kind of track and looking at maybe moving on to the kind of road scene, that have definitely got the engine. They've got to kind of prove things maybe more than maybe some of the youngsters.
Yeah, if you look, for example, at Soudal Quickstep, they've just promoted 3 of their own development team riders to the World Tour next year. They invested in promising French rider Antoine Hubie. The quite remarkable transfer that was announced yesterday or earlier this morning was the Spanish junior road champion going to the Israel Premier Tech development team, because Movistar doesn't have a development team. I think that if you are Spain's most important team, you would like to have the junior road champion at least connected to your team. But they don't have. They're one of the few World Tour teams that don't have their own development setup, as far as I know.
Well, the big talent, and I think we were talking to Rob Hatch about this, that he's probably more in touch with what's happening in Spain as well, living there and reading all about it. That the Spanish cycling is not producing big results. Okay, they had a good Tour de France this year, but many years before they were struggling to produce stage winners. They've now got Juan Ayuso, who could be the kind of next maybe GC contender. We'll see him at the Vuelta, but yeah, I think some of them are looking at bringing them on. And like you say, if you haven't got a development team and you're kind of looking at other teams, where can you get the talent in there, and others are snapping them up, why don't you bring that kind of junior, that young man on and bring him into the team, bring him into the fold and develop him within the team? It's either have a development team or not, and they don't, so they're having maybe 1 or 2 places, and hopefully kind of invest in this young man. Just give him a few races, don't give him a lot of races, and help him develop. But such as the change in cycling nowadays, that the numbers say, everybody wants to see the numbers, the power data, and they can determine the engine. And if you haven't got the engine, then you might not get that contract. And I think we go back to many times before, and I think recently with Mark Cavendish's Netflix documentary being released, and I was quite fortunate to go to the premiere of that, and I know a little bit of history about Mark. That we used to have kind of King Cycle test, indoor testing, and I never did very good at indoor testing because I just didn't like the kind of atmosphere and the heat within indoors, and I still don't like it. And Mark didn't produce the big results, but look at what he's done in his career. So it's not all just about testing. A lot of cycling is whether you enjoy it or not. So we'll get a thumbs up from the European champion Fabio Jakobsen, and that's what it's all about. It's about being happy. It's the mental side of things. It's okay looking at data, but it's your mentality. We mentioned Harm van Hoeke going away, getting good results with Lotto, going away to another team, not getting the best results, coming back, and a lot of that to me is mentality, and that's what all this kind of data and things like that doesn't provide.
No, and I hope that there is and there will be a place for riders with the maybe not the data, but with the mentality. We see that Grignard is now dropping from our breakaway. While we were chatting along, Brian, the gap has dropped to 1 minute and 9. We see that Soudal Quickstep have joined the chase together with Lidl Trek. Yeah, he's waiting for the neutral surface there, rear flat for Sébastien Grignard, a man from the city of Mons, in the south of Belgium, that is. Gap is around the minute mark, so the peloton will be quite close. And this will be the end of Grignard in the breakaway today.
I'm a bit surprised.
Stuck.
Yeah, you are allowed 2 cars. I'm not too sure why the second team car wasn't here. Maybe they've just brought 1 car, I don't know, because there's so many races on at the same time, but kind of surprised. And with a gap just over a minute, you would think that the team cars would still be there, and not unless they've kind of taken out. So he's had to rely on neutral service, unfortunately. But yeah, punctures all over the place at the moment. And another tip is, if you're out in weather conditions like that and you survive not getting a puncture, make sure before you ride your bike the next day is to check your tyres for flints, because a lot of after a kind of rainy conditions, I know that coming from Scotland, if you puncture early on the next day, it's because a flint stuck in the tyre and you pushed it into the tyre. afterwards. But unfortunately for Gruniard, it was a slow change. And he's gone from the breakaway back to the peloton.
Meaning that we have 5 riders left at the front, and the ever-reliable Julien Bernard still leading the peloton. Lidl Trek are here with Bernard. We've seen him. Jacopo Mosca also at the front of the bunch. Dan Hole, Mesh Pedersen, of course, Matthias Skelmose, Martin Pedersen, the brother of, and Tom Squeens, who had a absolute formidable World Championships. The man from last year.
Yes, he did. He did, and he said in social media, and I love him even more. I loved him, before this, but he said he wants to have more. Looks like
another
a rare, yeah. But he wants to have more. He wants to go back to Scotland, and that's what it's all about. I was very critical of the host broadcast, the pictures that we got in the races that I covered. I thought, especially in the time trial, they were absolutely shocking. It's a producer that is quite obviously has not done bike races before, which I think is criminal. But there's a lot of footage that we normally see in a lot of the other big races, but unfortunately a lot of the Scottish World Championships, the pictures that we're seeing weren't brilliant.
But I thought they had a Belgian director in Herregods, the man who always does the World Championships.
I'm not too sure who the broadcast was. I thought someone said, I think it might have been the BBC. But for me, there was parts of the time trial course that we never saw any of it.
No, there was a moment that I think Evenepoel overtook Geraint Thomas, and somebody filmed it and put it on the medium formerly known as Twitter. And that was basically the only thing we saw of Remco Evenepoel overtaking a former Tour de France champion in the time trial.
The hardest part of the time trial course was the drag up through Kippen, right? There's residents there, I know, that were so much looking forward to seeing them go through and putting Kippen on the map, right? And we never saw any of it at all. We never had any statics at, the checkpoints. Even some of the stuff they were missing in the road races. For me, it was shocking coverage. I've 17 years I've been doing commentary, and normally you see, the best pictures. Producers are going from camera to camera to camera and make sure we're seeing the race, not slow-mos.
A little bit of cobbled action here at 57 kilometers from the line, as our peloton is being battered by rain and flat tires that usually come together. There's our breakaway on the left of your screen and our peloton on the right of your screen. It's a minute apart. Our 5 leaders with Filippo Rodolfo, the man from Italy of Novo Nordisk, Wessel Krul of the Human Powered Health Team from the Netherlands, Mes Oostergaard of Leopard. We had Christian Ekholm, 19 years of age, the youngest of them all, of the Restaurant Suri Kal Ras team, and Niklas Pedersen of Team Colo Quick. And of course, we did have Sebastian Grignard in that breakaway, but he dropped out with a flat tire. Oostergaard also had a flat tire, our new king of the mountains, but he was, he managed to get back to the front, which is a fantastic achievement on his own. Here we have Pedersen trying to get back to the peloton after a flat tire. Nobody's really waiting for him, Brian. Is this a good sign?
We have this the whole time. It's a lot easier and safer. Hang on.
He apologises to the cameraman that he was gesturing at a little bit before.
No, I think it's the case of he wanted him to go away because he just said, I don't get the car if we do it like this. It's when the cameras are on you, you cannot do anything at all. And normally you're allowed, if you're puncturing or crashing anything like that, you can use your team vehicle to come back to the back of the convoy and work your way through. You just mentioned there, we see this in many races. I pull my hair out sometimes when I see riders going back for their team leaders in convoys. It's a lot safer, it's a lot easier, to pick your way through a convoy. The difference is waiting at the back and just bringing him up to the front, or if he hasn't got a convoy. But Mads Pedersen just went up there and says if the cameras are constantly on you, then you cannot kind of get behind the cars and things like that.
Well, we have a little bit of sunshine as we speak with Søren Kragh Andersen.
I think the most important thing here is the gap coming down to the 5 leaders now, purely because you don't want to risk anything in a circuit. If it's wet around this circuit, the corners, you can only go one speed round the corners. The breakaway can go round the corners at the same speed as the peloton. You don't want to kind of be risking and charging round these finishing circuits. So I think that's why the call is going out to Soudal, Quick Step and Lido Trek to just bring it back to manageable distance.
.48 seconds for our 5 leaders, meaning that quite soon the commissaires will call them on the radio, the team cars, to move up. You said, Brian, that in stage races, do they always have 2 team cars, or is that
normally
a decision by the organizer?
No, normally the stage race is 2 cars. They've changed it. Normally in a one-day race it used to be 1 car, but a lot of the kind of World Tour races, it's entirely up to you. You can have another car if you want to, because in a lot of the kind of big one-day classics, it's very difficult to do that with 1 car, because if you've got Ryder in the breakaway, then he's at a disadvantage if the car's not there. So they've kind of changed the rules slightly in a lot of the kind of top races, but at the same time, you know, we kind of have to limit the cars that are in the motorbikes that are in the convoy. But we've got so many races on at the moment, and you know, we're seeing cars at the side of the road as well. So in a race, you know, you could have 2 team cars, you could have other 2 cars doing the kind of feed stations, because you know, it's just not one feed station. You see a Lotto Destiny car there doing a feed, he might have to go to a couple of points, another car going to another couple of points. So how many vehicles you got with all these races that are going on at the same time? You know, how many vehicles you got in your team? So, and this is the World Tour teams, and obviously Lotto Destiny is a 2nd division team. But can you imagine continental teams, how many cars they've got? Okay, they don't have maybe 3 races on at the same time. This is their kind of big race, but yeah, logistics is a thing that you really have to have a lot and spend a lot of money getting the right people to look after that in a pro team.
Yeah, there's usually 1 person full-time into logistics, the vehicles, the buses, hotels, flights, whatever, to make sure that everybody is at the right time, at the right place.
You have to have a logistical brain, yeah, because the last thing you want to do, if you've got a race in Burgos, which is going on now, right, so, and then that Burgos vehicle might be going to the Vuelta, so you want to be sending that vehicle, you don't want it coming all the way back to go to the Vuelta again. So that bus, that vehicle, that truck has to have all the equipment for Burgos, and then for the riders that are going to the Vuelta afterwards. So it's, you don't want it, vehicles don't come back to the service course wherever they are in Europe. They don't come back after every race. They stay out there for 3 and 4 weeks and then come back, and then you go out again, and then if you're going through Switzerland, you've got carnets to do. It's a nightmare.
We have a little bit of an attack from the peloton. One of the riders of the Suri Ras team, a team with 7 Danish riders, including former Trek Segafredo pro Jacob Ekholm, Paris-Roubaix Junior winner, I think, Magnus Bach-Claris, Rasmus Wallin, Daniel Stampe, Matthias Larsen, Oscar Blum, and Christian Ekholm, who is in our breakaway. But on the other hand, it could also be the BHS team, who are also in blue. It is indeed the BHS Beton Bornholm team. This is Sebastian Ruttersgaard, 185. I have no idea what he's doing here. So I'll leave that to you, Brian, to explain. What is he doing here?
Yeah, look, I found it strange if it was one of the Restaurant Suri riders, because they've got a rider in front. Look, I said it right from the start. You know, for a lot of these riders, try and get in the breakaway. They never got in the breakaway. So, you know, with the peloton closing the gap down to, 40 odd seconds, the peloton have clearly eased a little bit. And, this rider has thought, here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity to get my name mentioned on the radio, to be seen on TV. And this is what happens. Yeah, it's about putting your name out there. This is not, with 51 kilometres to go, this is not a race-winning move, but it's just kind of taking an opportunity and be seen. You can sit in this peloton all day and finish in 20th, and nobody would even notice. So for some of these young riders, it is about taking a bit of an opportunity and trying to kind of make that name for yourself.
And on top of it, he is from the region.
Yeah,
so maybe he's going to greet some friends. Maybe he's just going to pass his village.
That doesn't happen anymore. It used to happen a lot. Maybe it might happen from time to time, but it used to happen a lot. If you came from in a race and you came from a village or a town, you were allowed to go ahead. You asked the permission of the peloton and go ahead. That doesn't happen anymore. So, yeah, of course, if this was a Tour of Scotland and I was in the race, I would want to be in the front as well.
Well, these riders are at the front. Still 5 of them working well together. 163 Mats Østergaard, our king of the hills, as it's called here, followed by young Christian Ekholm of the Restaurant Suri Calras. We have Filippo Rodolfo, an Italian rider of Novo Nordisk, Niklas Pedersen of Team Colo Quick, and this is Wessel Krul, a Dutchman of Human Powered Health, the man from the region of Enkhuizen, which is what we call West Friesia. It's north of Amsterdam. It's an absolutely beautiful city, city on the former Southern Sea, which is now a lake since the 1930s, but absolutely lovely former harbour town. Looks like we also have a flat here for Jacobsen, who could be Danish, but is not. Might be. Or
coming back. But just getting back to that point before, we're getting into the last 50 kilometres now. In Scotland, MacDonald or McDonald or McCormick or whatever it is, that Mac and Mick and things like that is son of. So Donald, son of Donald, and that's how it is. Is that the same for, in this part of the world? So you've got, for instance, you've got Pedersen, so that is that Peder's son?
Yeah.
And in all Jacobsen is the same?
Yeah, but then it would be Jakobsson.
Okay.
And that kind of got abbreviated to Jakobsen. Yeah, that's what it is from originally. In all Scandinavian languages, in Icelandic, they have dottir for daughter, and they also have a variety for son. Same in Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, etc. Yeah, so a lot of the Germanic languages, but Jakobsson then became Jakobsen. Jansson became Jansson. So yeah, it's the same thing. Of course, Danish has a very distinct pronunciation, but if you read Danish, there's a lot of words that you can understand if you know German or Dutch. And what we just saw was vineyard, which is, well, a vineyard. It's exactly the same word as you have in English. All Germanic languages, they all have the same origin. Roman time starts in Belgium. Lovely puddle here. Johan Prijs Pedersen, the king of the puddles in Harrogate, of course not racing here, part of the Bahrain Victorious team. So here we are with our chaser, the man who was born in Aalborg. Of course, it could mean that he was born in the hospital in Aalborg and is from one of the villages around this town. About 117,000 inhabitants in Aalborg, the third biggest city in Denmark, after, of course, Copenhagen, Odense and Aarhus. We've been here before. The last time was in 2018. That stage was won by Lasse Norman Let Hansen, ahead of Brian Cocard and Max Kanter. In 2007 we were here, a stage win for Francesco Chicchi. In 2003 we had a stage win here when it was still a 2.2 race, so basically an amateur race, by Mark Scanlon. Remember that name, the 1998 junior world champion of Valkenburg, the Irishman. And in 2001, for the last of our 4 finishes here in Aalborg, was Danilo Hondo winning the stage. But today we have a very exciting Finnish circuit. It's the same Finnish circuit that was used for the Danish National Championships. And the top 3 there was, well, we of course know that Matthias Skelmose is the Danish champion. Magnus Bak-Klaris of the Western Suri Kalras was second at almost a minute, and he was in a group of 5 riders with Andreas Kroon of Lotto Destiny, who's not racing here. I think he's preparing for the Vuelta. Are they doing the Vuelta? I think they are doing the Vuelta. Anton Charmig, Matthias Breinhoy, and yeah, that was it. All of these riders are here. Rest of the top 10, Søren Kragh Andersen racing here for Alpecin de Koning. Matthias Norsgaard not racing because Movistar. Rasmus Wallin racing here. Frederik Muff and Axel Beck. Scott Hansen. That was the top 10. The difference is really big in that top 10. And Skelmose won it after 10k solo. So if I read it correctly, he went on that first of the 2 climbs, and that is the steepest of the 2. It's called the Skofbakkevej, which is a 7.5% climb of 500 meters. We're going to enter the Finnish circuit. We are going to enter the Finnish circuit 8 kilometers. We went in stereo. 8 kilometers from now, we enter the Finnish circuit, and then after 4k, we pass the finish line for 3 laps of 11.5 kilometers. And the sun's out. Hooray.
So I've got one question for you, Jose, just before we come on to these circuits.
Yep.
It's been a long time since Joop Zoetemelk that the Dutch took the national men's elite title. Mm-hmm. How did it go down in the Netherlands?
It was a big thing. It was absolutely a big thing. Of course, in women's cycling, we're used to many world championships. Yeah. It was actually in one of the news bulletins here that the Dutch didn't win the title. That was the news. For the first time in forever, there was neither a TT or a road race title. Yes, me and my family, we were all on the edge of our seats. I was sitting on the table as I was for Milan-San Remo. And my mother and my sister were sitting on the table as well. It's a little bit of a family tradition. Yeah, it was big. It was absolutely really, really big. And of course, having waited so long for a men's world champion, yeah, an absolute fantastic year. He's really popular in the Netherlands. There was a little bit at the beginning of the season when he announced that he was going to peak more towards certain races instead of just riding races and play around like he always used to do, like attack at I don't know how many Ks from the finish line. Sometimes still does it, like in the Tour of Belgium, of course. But he peaked towards certain races, and it's been an absolute stunner of a year. He did announce that the World Championships was his last road race of the year. He's going to do one of these show crits 5 days from now in Etten-Leur. But apart from that, he's not going to do any road racing anymore. And that was on the 6th of August. I was a bit shocked by that. But
yeah, same here. I didn't know that. That's a shame because, you want to honour the rainbow bands, and, everybody wants to see the rainbow bands at some of the kind of top races. So that's a bit of a shame.
It is a shame, but we will see Mathieu van der Poel year-round in rainbows. Well, the only day that he might not be wearing rainbows is, I think, from the top of my head, the 8th of October, and that is the World Gravel Championships. Not been formally announced just yet. We do know that
you just have done that.
No. It's been rumoured. It's been rumoured that he wants to go for these rainbow bands. As you know, there's only one person in history who held 3 world titles simultaneously, and that is Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in 2014. And yeah, if he can add a gravel world title to it, because the mountain biker didn't really go to plan. After 3 minutes, it was over. He still has 3 world titles in 1 year. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot might as well just go for another gravel world title, but
where is the gravel?
In Italy again. Same place as last year. It's the northeast, so near Venice.
Yeah, Trentino area.
Yeah, no, Trentino's the hilly stuff.
Treviso.
It's on the top of my... I can't remember it anymore. But it's quite a flat affair. Veneto, of course. Yeah. Next year it will be in Belgium. Wout van Aert has announced that he wants to go for the European title. That is mid-September in the Netherlands, in Drenthe, where I'm from. But yeah, then he can go for that jersey, and then we can have Wout van Aert as European champion and Mathieu van der Poel as world champion, and maybe Tadej Pogacar can get himself a jersey, a standout. He has a national jersey, but it's not exactly a standout jersey, is it?
Well, I've followed gravel for a little bit, and going in the World Championships last year, that it seemed to be really suited towards the kind of road riders, and no real surprise that a lot of road riders are looking at it. I was talking to Nico Roche at an event that I was part of the organisation with Hot Chili at the Écaille Stone Circle event in Stonehenge at Salisbury, and he was telling me that gravel's going a little bit more kind of rough and kind of outdoor, where you have to kind of get off the bike at some points of it and run over streams.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about the gravel when it became a UCI mandated World Championships. But I think last year in Veneto, there was also a significant advantage for the road riders who could start on the first start rows. And the course that we had in Veneto was a lot of single track. So it was really, really hard to advance. We started uphill. So basically from the start, it was a nice little climb. Not a long climb. I don't think it was longer than a kilometre. But if you were a few rows back, that was a serious disadvantage. So the riders who came out on top on that little climb basically dictated the rest of the race in both the women's and the men's race. It was really, really hard to move up. So there was a lot of criticism about the start grid, a bit like the mountain bike world championships that we had last week. But we'll see what happens this year. It will be on GCN, Eurosport and Discovery Plus, both the men's and the women's races. Race World Championships will be on, I think it's the 7th and 8th of October. It is the 7th and 8th of October. And we're also going to do the catch-up of the Tour of Turkey, Brian, from the 8th of October. The one that should have taken place in April?
Yes, indeed. I know I'm covering it. I believe it's with Carlton, I think.
Yep. It's not with me, no. No, they were supposed to have the Tour of Turkey in April, but that was very short after the devastating earthquake that we had in the north of Syria and the east of Turkey, so they had to postpone it to October. But that will be on for you to enjoy as well. Our man from Aalborg is about to get caught, Sebastian Ruttersgaard, of the BHS PL Baton Bornholm team. And if Baton is exactly the same as it is in Dutch, it's a concrete manufacturer. We do have a lot of the same camera crew from the World Championships, from the paracycling and the road events, who basically came back from Scotland and immediately got on a plane to Denmark from the NEP crew. We have a problem here with Michael Valgren. Good to have him back. He was on the attack a lot in the Tour de l'Ain, which took place first half of last week, or 2 weeks ago already. Of course, that devastating crash that was almost career-ending. He got himself a place in the development setup for EF Education and now is back with the main team. Fantastic rider, Michael Valgren Hundal. Hundal then being the name of his wife. That person that just came out of the house was too late. It's like, oh, there's something happening. Oh, the peloton has already passed. We're about to enter the circuit here in Aalborg. And that is at 38.8 kilometers. So our breakaway should be there, more or less. So we have our repeat there of the flat tire of Michael Valgren. EF Education are here with James Shaw, Magnus Kort, who is a 4-time stage winner in the Tour of Denmark, Stefan de Bot, Mikkel Honoré, Jonas Ruch, Tom Scully, and of course Michael Valgren.
Crash at the back of the peloton there. Not sure if we're going to see it, but yeah, just a little bit of nervousness now as we're coming onto the circuit. That's quite normal that this happens, especially if it's damp conditions. You know, they brought the time gap down to around about 1 minute, so they don't want to, you know, risk anything. Maybe an unfortunate puncture for a few riders, but they want to get good position in the run in towards this finishing lap.
Yeah, there's two riders of the Danish national team. We have the 111, that's Stanislav Aniolkowski, Axel de Lee with 67 is here. A185 is Rittersgaard. He was just at the front, yes, and now he's at the back. Must have happened on these white lines there.
Potentially, if he was coming back and things like that, and he was just drifting back, he might have been kind of hit. We don't know unless we see the helicopter shot. But yeah, being in a breakaway, getting caught, and then getting caught up in the crash, not the perfect first stage for him.
Well, this man needs a new bike. His chain is loose. Axel de Lee, the older brother of, and Rittersgaard is still on the deck. Quite unfortunate there. He was on the attack towards his hometown. Rasmus Pedersen there. I do think it's the same Rasmus Pedersen as we had in the Danish team pursuit. But since Pedersen and Rasmus are quite common names, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Maybe somebody can enlighten me if that is the same Rasmus Pedersen as we had in the gold-winning Danish team pursuit. Back to our breakaway, still 54 kilometers. And Brian, this circuit is a tricky one. It has a lot of corners, and especially with the weather circumstances, the rain has gone right now, but the road's of course still quite wet. A lot of corners, these two climbs. I still have to see if that's going to be a bunch sprint, actually.
I think it'll be reduced. I think I'm not saying this is like Glasgow, but you're right. It's technical nature, and it's kind of wet, dry roads, as we can see. You really want to take this one on from the front and not risk anything. So I think there will be, if they race round here, I think there could be some thrills and spills, and this is why we're seeing a lot of the top teams have come to the front now.
X there with 6 Danish riders with Bendixen, Grenet. We have William Blume, Levy, Anton Charmig, Lasse Nolman Let, a former winner here in the streets of Aalborg, Nicolas Larsen, and one man from Norway, Søren Berenskjold.
I think this is what Alpes and Deceuninck are trying to do now. They've come onto the circuit, they've realised it's technical. You don't want to kind of hang around, you want to take it on from the front. But like the Danish did when they came onto the lap in Glasgow in the elite men's race. So yeah, just a little bit of a tactic, taking it on, being safe, and making sure they don't get caught up in any crashes.
If you just joined us from Burgos, a race that finished 15 minutes ago, this is stage 1 of the Tour of Denmark. We're racing from and to Aalborg, and we are now on the local circuits. It's a 169.9 kilometer stage today, and we had a breakaway of 6 riders that basically went straight from the start. These 5 riders, plus Sébastien Grignard of Lotto Destiny, he dropped from the break with a flat tyre, and left at the front are the Danish rider Mads Østergaard, our king of the hills, as we call it here in Denmark, Christian Ekholm, the youngest of them all, just 19, and Niklas Pedersen, one man from the Netherlands, Wessel Krul, and one Italian rider for the Novo Nordisk team. The gap never really that big, completely held under control by mostly Julien Bernard and Jacopo Mosca. And now we're on the local circuits, a kilometre out from the finish line. And you can already hear the announcers in the distance. 34.5 kilometres from the line, we have the finish. And here is the Flamme Rouge. We had crashes, we had flat tyres, but so far, no big names out. Here we're on site of the Finnish cameras. A nice, very wide road here.
Yeah, it's not so technical, the run-in. There are technical parts of this circuit which you can't treat lightly, but definitely the kind of last parts of this run-in is the kind of wide roads and things like that. So we have to be kind of thankful for that, because I've covered the Tour of Denmark many times, and some of these kind of town centre or city centre run-ins could be quite tricky, especially in the rain.
Well, the Danish fans have come out. I don't know if you have all seen the images of Jonas Vingegaard in Copenhagen. The crowds were, if possible, even bigger than they were last year when he got his first Tour de France victory. The Danes love their cycling. That is, of course, a fact that we have seen last year at the Grand Départ of the Tour de France in Copenhagen. 3 stages here in Denmark. Not as far north as we are racing today, because we are in the most northern province of Denmark. We are on Jutland, and you can go up to Skagen, but that is a stone's throw away from where we are now. That's the most northern tip of the country. A city of about 110,000 people. Here in Aalborg, they have a zoo, they have the Aalborg Tower, they have an historical museum, they have Viking artifacts for you to enjoy, even burial grounds of the Viking people. So a lot of culture, and the historical centre is, according to the tourist guide, absolutely charming, with quaint shops, cafes and historical buildings. And they have cobblestone streets as well, Brian, and coffee, and Scandi cuisine.
Denmark. When I was there, I was here many years ago. I think I spent my 19th birthday in Copenhagen, Tivoli Gardens. So that was only a matter of
about a Ferris wheel.
10-15 years ago.
Of course.
So, yeah. So I've
just
got
the turn
memories.
of the century.
Yeah, fond memories of racing in Sweden with the Scottish team coming here to Denmark, which, Yeah, great people. And of course, I came here 94 and won the Grand Prix Herning on the dirt track. So yeah, I had a fabulous time.
Here we are on the local circuit, 169.9 kilometers today for our peloton, with Lidl Trek as one of the big teams, of course, with Danish national champion Matthias Skelmose, but also Mads Pedersen as their top sprinter. We have Alpecin de Koning with their Danish rider Søren Kragh Andersen. We have EF Education Easy Post with Magnus Kort, who won 4 stages here in the past. Mads Pedersen won 3, but 4 for Magnus Kort. Soudal Quickstep are here with Fabio Jacobsen. DSM Firmenich have Tobias Andersen, also an interesting rider when it comes to today's finish. UnoX are here, Lotto Destiny, Tudor, the Green Project Bardiani. Bolton Equities are here with Aaron Gate, the world points race champion on the track. Absolute phenomenal race that was by the Kiwi. Completely dominant racing. And this is the first of our 2 climbs on the local lap. It is called the Skofbakkevei. It's just shy of 500 meters long. Nothing to be scoffed at. It's just shy of 500 meters, but an average gradient of 7.5%. And this comes about 10 kilometers out from the finish line, 9 to be exact.
Yeah, the only problem about this is it's not a long climb, but anybody that's ridden, and you'll know this, as Jose in the Netherlands, but see when you ride on the flat for a long period of time and then you hit just a small climb like this, it shocks the legs a little bit. Yeah, it just shocks the legs a little bit and they kind of blow up. So you can see that riders have been distanced at the back already and still in this climb. You know, it's not been the hardest of stages, it's not been the hilliest of stages, but it just puts you out that rhythm of riding, you know, big gears all day. All of a sudden you hit this small climb and it's like, oof, the legs just, you know, blow up like balloons. And, you know, we are going to see a reduced group sprint. But yeah, most of the kind of contenders seem to be up near the front already.
I did mention the Modern Art Museum, but there it is. And we have a tower. I did mention that one. But also very narrow, that climb up the Bakkevei. And all of a sudden, our breakaway is about to get caught.
Yeah, they were taking the motorbikes and things like that. I knew it was starting to get very close. They were kind of panicking, and yeah, just that kind of surge in that hill for positioning more than anything. And I don't think anybody's trying to kind of take advantage. I think most of the riders and the teams at the front, especially Alpecin de Koning in the blue, they are wanting to ride this one from the front. A lot of riders being distanced at the back. It's not really kind of attacking at the front yet. Possibly see something in the final lap, but because of the kind of technical nature and things of this small lap, riders have been distanced out the back more than jumping off the front.
This is Martin Pedersen, the brother of Mads Pedersen. Mads is all the way at the front and Martin all the way at the back. He's a stagiaire with the Lidl Trek team. A breakaway about to get caught with their names once more: Christian Ekholm, Niklas Pedersen, Mads Østergaard, Dessel Krul, Filippo Rodolfo, and at the beginning also Sebastian Grignard. And now Lidl Trek are taking over Guermantes. They're here with a super strong team, but also this man at the front is a name that I'm looking forward to. He rode a very strong Tour de Wallonie, Brent van Moer. They had a, I think, 35-kilometer time trial there that was won by Gunnar, just 10 seconds ahead of Josh Tarling. But he was third in the GC. This is the kind of race that Brent van Moer can really do well in, as can Florian Vermeers.
Indeed, I'm just looking second place there, Søren Kragh.
Yep.
You know, local rider, you know, prefers it being a little bit hard, especially these kind of finishing circuits. And coming onto this circuit, Alpecin de Koning have decided to kind of take it on, and it does look as if they're riding for him, which means that it's not controlling. They've only got one rider in front of them, so I think it's a case of Søren Kragh sitting in second place, is looking to try and kind of potentially whittle this group down. We know he's got a kind of fast enough finish.
Well,
right?
Success.
Yeah, he's got a fast enough finish. So maybe in this climb, we might see an effort from Soren Kragh just to maybe try and come to the finish with 4 or 5, 6 riders, but definitely not a big peloton, because he knows that he's not as fast as Jakobsen and definitely Mads Pedersen. So trying to kind of break things up a little bit.
After a long drought, after his fantastic year in 2020 with the 2 Tour de France stages, of course, he won again this year in Eschborn, Frankfurt. That was, of course, traditionally on Labor Day on the 1st of May. And he had a little bit of help there from Fabio van der Bosse, currently at the front of the peloton, a man who was active on the track as well at the Glasgow Worlds. I think he did elimination racing, Fabio van der Bosse. We also have Soudal Quickstep at the front. They're racing here with, of course, Fabio Jakobsen. But I do wonder if this circuit is just not a tad too hard for Jakobsen.
It depends how they race it, Jose. He's very capable of getting over these climbs with the group. But if they race it, which it looks as if they are, and we're looking at the Danish champion towards the front as well, Skelmos, and when you see that in the national championships, he's a slight rider. He's a bit more of a mountain climber than anything else. So it just goes to show you.
Here we go again.
Mads.
This is not his day. He gets support there from Dan Hole, one of the taller riders, helping him out. There we go. Great teamwork there, but if the pace is on, this is going to be one serious effort by Mads Pedersen to get back to the front. I was proven wrong, by the way. Well, we still have 28.7k to go. But Fabio Jakobsen was at the front in 7th position, looking completely undeterred at the moment.
He should be able to get over here. We might have a mix. It depends how hard they race it. The only problem with Mads Pedersen there, the reason why he took a wheel from his teammate was he doesn't want it, because groups are already off the back. He doesn't want to wait to the back of the group and get his team car, but he's just getting on. You can see on the right hand side, he's just getting on to a group that's already been detached. I think he will need his teammates to drop back and help him this time, so he'll get onto this group, but this group is potentially 20 seconds down. Yeah, so he'll need some teammates to try and kind of take him over these gaps that are happening in front. It's not about this stage. He's had 2 punctures, one coming onto the circuit, one on the circuit. It's not just about this stage, Jose. This is about the overall. Mads Pedersen has said this whole route of this race, he could be one of the contenders. You've got Tom Squeens in 2nd place. You've got Skelmos up there in 4th place. You've got Mads Pedersen. They'll want both Skelmos, even Squeens and Mads Pedersen up there in the general classification. So this is crucial that Mads Pedersen gets back. Okay, expends a little bit of energy, but this is more for the overall rather than just for the stage here.
Yeah, he won it in 2017, so still a very young Mads Pedersen in 2017, ahead of Michael Valgren and Kasper Pedersen. Not related, it's just one of the most common names in Denmark in general.
They're big gaps. They're big gaps. He will not be able to do that. The reason why the riders are dropped is because they don't have the legs. So he's passing these riders. So, this group could not hang on. Mads Pedersen is a stronger rider and he's having to do a lot of it on his own. He's just got into the back group. He's chipping across the group by group. He has to do that. He has to bunny up group by group. The thing is, what does Little Trek do? They've already ridden. They've already used a couple of teammates already. So who's going to drop back? We've only got, small teams here. So, but I still think he's going to need a little bit of help.
Yeah, you ask who's going to help him. We already saw Jacopo Mosca and Julien Bernard do all the work at the front of the bunch. They're already dropped. His brother is already dropped, Martin Pedersen. And Dan Hole just gave his wheel to. And so then you're left with Skelmose, who is a contender for the overall win himself. And I would like to add Tom Squeens to to the pool of contenders for the overall win. So he's a little bit left to his own devices at the moment, Mess Pedersen. This could already be quite a crucial stage when it comes to the overall classification.
The thing is Squinch and Skelmos is there. I think Mosca is just behind as well, but maybe the information hasn't got back yet. But I think Pedersen could do with a little bit of help just doing the last gap. Hopefully he does make it home, because we don't let anybody be thwarted by kind of double puncture in quick succession. But yeah, not ideal for Mads Pedersen, because he definitely was one of the favourites for today's stage. But like we're already saying, a favourite for the overall.
Fabio van der Bos at the front. We already saw Søren Kragh. Ramon Sinkeldam is here. Nicola Conchi, Oscar Riesebeek, Jensen Plowright, and Christian Sparalier. Those are the riders for the Alpecin de Koning team on this rather challenging circuit. It's the circuit where we had the 2022 national championships, and 23 of course, national championships for Denmark. Title was won by, you can see him there at the front, Matthias Skelmose. Rebecca Kerner won there for the women's race. But Skelmose, he knows this circuit, as do all the Danes here today. And the sun is coming out. The roads are drying, but that is always a dangerous point, because there's always going to be wet patches. We see the first leaves coming off the trees as well. Is that already the first group? Is that already the first group?
Yeah, he's almost there. It just needs one rider. I think it's Mosca. It's in there. He's looking back, but it just needs that one person just to give him a turn. Unfortunately, Norman Lasse Hansen has been dropped. If he can help, he can help. But just looking back in this group here, as you say, there's one other little Trek rider in here. It just needs that one person to drop back. If I was in their shoes, I'd maybe sacrifice Squinch. I would just say, look, just drop back a little bit. It's only one effort. Just get him back on, because the effort he's making now, okay, the stage might be a little bit too far, but just look at that's Mosca there, isn't it?
The Mosca's still there.
Yeah, he's on the radio. Just drop back. So Mosca, drop back, just help him the last 200 metres and make it a little bit easier for him to come up. I just don't understand this. It's the longer this goes on, the more damage it's doing to Mads Pedersen.
Final kilometre of our first lap, and the run-in towards the finish line is... there's a Bidon going back in the peloton. It's been thrown out again, but that was a tricky situation. Somebody going for a run, why not?
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the back door now, because this is crucial time. Still no real movement there from Mosca. He's just sitting there in Skelmos. Whether they've decided to come here and look at Skelmos and Squinch, but it's not a big effort just to drop off the back and allow Mads to come back, especially in the last couple of kilometres. We're coming through the finish before we hit that steep climb.
Yeah, tricky situation, because indeed Jacopo Mosca is still there. He's of course not a contender for the GC. He is the guy who should now be dropping back. You can see him in the distance, Mess Pedersen. Here he is, together with Lasse Norman Leth, who, like you said, Brian, cannot really contribute to the chase all that much, but he's about 350, 400 metres back.
But you know what, Jose, I think he just gave him a turn there. So, that is a gentleman thing to do. I don't think he's getting dropped because he's getting dropped. I don't think he's doing it. I think he just gave him a turn there just to give him a little bit of a respite, but that's what your teammates are for. Maybe I'm giving Little Trek a hard time because they might not know what the situation is, but for me, Mosca has to drop back. It's gone out to about 300 metres now. Okay, it'll come back on the climb, but on this part,
it's not hard.
Yeah, it's not hard to just kind of drop back a little bit and give him give him that little bit of help so that when it comes to a steep climb, he can close that gap.
Yeah, he's losing time at the moment, Brian. It was 25 and it's now up to 40. Looks like, yeah, Mosca's still up there, and Squinch, of course, in second place, trying to disturb the chase, but it's time to disturb the pace. But Fabio van der Bos and now Tim de Klerk, of course, they know what is happening to one of their biggest rivals when it comes to today's stage win. And maybe they have already made the decision that they are going all in for the GC for Skelmose, and that they want to keep Mosca with Skelmose in case something happens right there. But yes, it's a difficult situation for Pedersen, especially as the home rider.
That could be, but why is Mads Pedersen giving it absolutely 100% to come back? I think potentially it's for the overall. I think the effort he's making at the moment is going to kill his legs for the sprint come the end. So I can only think that he wants to get back because he wants to try and kind of think about, I said this right from the start, this parkour this year for the Tour of Denmark, I think suits Mads Pedersen with the time trial at the end. He's super strong, and in these disciplines he can pick up bonus seconds in the finishes. It just doesn't look as if, you know, they're thinking about at the moment, who do you sacrifice, what the situation is. And I think it could be a mistake, and it could come up and bite them back, you know, at the end of this race. So let's see. You know, he's still 30 seconds. That could have been 10, 15 seconds of Mosca to come back. On this steep climb, I'm pretty sure Mads Pedersen would have joined at the front of the group, but it's a huge effort he's making at the moment.
We also have Nicholas Sikowski, the Canadian champion, moving up to the front. A lovely jersey there. And now it's a little bit of work there for the EVE Education guys. On the climb, we have a very active Tom Squinch. And now he's stuck. He's stuck between the cars. Yeah, of course he's unhappy. But the pace is up here on the climb, and Pedersen has to navigate himself through the convoy, which on a narrow street like this one is going to be quite a big task. He's almost at the tail end, but these are all
riders
drop
that are getting dropped. That's what Fabio just needed. It needed Mosca to drop back. Mosca dropped back. Pedersen would already have joined them at the bottom of the climb and not have to come by these riders that are being dropped. For me, I'm shaking my head at this because
I see.
Yeah, it just needed that one person, Mosca, drop back, help him, get him on at the bottom of the climb, and now he's going to have even more efforts to jump from the different groups. He's already been jumping from group to group already. I think it's going to kill his legs for the sprints, but what Mads Pedersen is trying to think is he's trying to think of the long game now.
Straight off the back of the climb, we have the group at the front getting smaller and smaller and smaller. 40 seconds was the last indicator for Mads Pedersen, who had a flat tire, rear tire, when the entire race blew to pieces. Team cars everywhere, groups everywhere. So it was Dan Holer actually giving his rear wheel to his teammate. 19.6 kilometers to go. We just had the steepest of the two climbs on the local lap. And I think it's over for Mads Pedersen. Body language there, of course, he's on the descent, trying to recover a little bit from the effort. And this is a moment that he has to hope for, that there's a little bit of a moment of indecision there at the front, and that the pace drops, but then the next rider is going to attack, and this time it's a man of the Lotto Destiny team. Is this Giddings? No, it's not. Yeah, this is of course absolutely detrimental to the chances there of Pedersen coming back.
The thing is, it could have been resolved if they'd have thought, you know, a lot quicker in that situation on a kind of flatter part before that that steep climb. But you know, gaps absolutely everywhere. I wouldn't write him off, but it's just a huge effort to come back to the front of this race now.
that cry. Oh, that was a really blood-curdling cry there. Ugh. But we have Harry Sweeney at the front at the moment. There he is, together with Alpecin de Koning, with I think it's Conchi.
Yeah, looks like Conchi is at front for Alpecin de Koning in the blue. But all these things happen at the back of the peloton, that crash there and vehicles everywhere. It's not really helping Mads Pedersen to try and come back.
Also traffic islands everywhere. And not everything is not everything is indicated.
So I'm looking at Tom Squinch at the front here. They're looking after Skelmos. Still looking at the back of the peloton as well. So, but yeah, plenty of attacks in this, as expected. You know, this race is splitting up. Nobody can control it, and yeah, we could have a reduced sprint, but then again, by the looks of things, there's a lot of riders trying to get at this kind of small group.
Brent van Moer actually on the attack. Just got a close-up of his face. There he is. Now getting back, we have the Swedish champion. And I always have to check which of the Eriksson brothers that actually is. But I think it's the same as we had last year. Lucas.
Sharmik at the front here for Uno X. Sparagli in the blue for Alpecin. Tom Squinch just listening in to his race radio. Maybe he might know something is happening at the back of this group.
Sharmik, a rider who's going to leave the Uno X team, is going to join Astana next year. So Sharmik, Eriksson, Sparagli, Brent van Moer, Squinch, and Jonas Rutsch of the EF Education Easy Post team. That is, those are the 6 riders at the front at the moment. A very interesting little circuit here, with Tom Squinch being on fire. He's still got that fantastic Glasgow form that he displayed there, getting himself a top 10 at the World Championships.
But the problem is he's kind of shutting these things down. There was an attack there from Conchi and the rider from Lotto Destiny, Brent van Moer, and he was the rider that kind of shut it down. He never kind of took his own chances. So I think, you know, he's thinking Skelmos more than anything. Just trying to look further down this group here to see if any of the sprinters have actually made it.
It's still a rather big group. I do spot Fabio Jakobsen still in this group. It's still a really big group. Maybe we should go over some of the fast riders, as we have an attack from Tudor.
It's always the case. As soon as you get, you know, it's settling down, and I think Mosca is the rider trying to kind of shut these things down. So it does look as if Lido Trek just trying to kind of close things off a little bit.
This is former Danish champion Alexander Kamp. You can see the flags there on his arm. Part of the Tudor Pro Cycling team, who seriously bolstered their squad with, I think, 7 or 8 signings all in one, including Matteo Trentin.
I can only think he's attacking because he's Danish, because in any other race he would have been kind of sitting back and waiting for the sprint.
Normally he's a good sprinter, yeah.
Yeah, he packs a good sprint, so maybe in some other races he would have sat back and took his chance in the sprint, because you must know it's a reduced sprint. He has got a sprint, but this isn't helping his sprint at all. So I think it, you know, because he's Danish race, that, you know, he's trying here, but I don't think he's going to get too far, because Lido Trek are on him with Mosca. I'd love to see the back of this group.
To see where Mads Pedersen is. I think we will get a shot once we cross the finish line. That will be 3 kilometers from now. They're not racing here with Arvid de Klein, their sprinter. They're racing here with the Eriksson brothers, Sebastian Koolse-Tjangisi, up-and-coming young Danish rider, Alexander Kamp, Simon Pelot, everybody's favorite Swiss-Colombian rider, Luc Wirtgen, and I think a stagiaire, Alvarez Mikutis. I saw him in the Giro Next Gen, a man from Lithuania.
I've not seen it yet, but I think Mads Pedersen is back.
That would be absolutely great, and a little bit of an omission there from the director of this coverage. But the pace is completely gone. He's there.
Back.
He's there.
He's back.
He's there. Well done.
That's only because I was wondering why Mosca started to ride, and I'm thinking, wow, what a turnaround this would be. What an effort Mads Pedersen have to make. You know, great legs. We saw that at the World Championships, but he's back up towards the front, and he's only got kind of 14 kilometers, 2 small climbs to kind of rest up. Yeah, what a huge effort that was there. And but I still think Lidl-Trek did that wrong. They only needed Mosca to drop back and help him a little bit. I know I said earlier on the stage that when you puncture in the convoy it's easier, but in these circumstances, when you've got gaps opening left, right and centre, it's a hell of a lot easier to have just one person to be able to help him. So the European champion is there, Jakobsen and Mads Pedersen, and I think at the start of the stage today you would have thought they're the 2 favourites for this stage, and they're there, but
still are.
How they've got here is 2 different ways. 2 punctures for Mads Pedersen, and quite I know that Jakobsen had a puncture potential, I think we saw earlier on today, but he's had an easier ride. But looking at the size of this group, there's not many teams that are looking at controlling this. Lidl-Trek are at the front with Mosca and Tom Squinch. I'm pretty sure we'll see some attacks as we get up to this, especially on the steep climb. So I think Mads Pedersen has retrieved things, might not have the legs to finish it off in the end. Jakobsen might be the favourite now, but there's not a lot of teams here with big numbers towards the front.
Riders there of the Flanders Baloise team as well. Some of them coming straight from the track in Glasgow with bronze medal winner Tu Dens. Sjoerd Hestes is there as well. We have a rider of Novo Nordisk. I do think Tobias Lund Andersen is there for BMS Firmenich. It's still a rather big group, but the 2 biggest favourites before the stage are still there. Christian Sparalier is having a good day as well. There is Lund Andersen in the black of DSM. Oof. There's bottles bouncing left and right, some even back into the peloton. Fabio Jakobsen still has Tim de Klerk, Casper Pedersen with him. Morke I have not seen. He's done some work, of course, but so did Tim de Klerk. But Casper Pedersen is, of course, also an interesting man for the lead out for Fabio Jakobsen.
I'm just kind of hearing in my ear Magnus Kort.
Yep.
I think he's in this group, and you know, he's a rider that I don't think he'll want to wait. He's got good sprints, but I think for me, maybe on that kind of steep climb, he'll be looking to potentially do something.
Getting towards the finish line as we speak with Jacopo Mosca at the front. A good rider to follow on socials. There's a lot of training right going on with his life partner Elisa Longo Borghini, who luckily is back into training after her surgery. They always seem to have great fun on training rights together, Jacopo Mosca and Elisa Longo Borghini. Back in the train with Nes Pedersen. 4 riders there of Lidl-Trek. Mosca, Pedersen, Skelmose and Tom Squinch. 3.5 hours of racing, and this is our last lap. Søren Werenskjold is there as well, just ahead of Fabio Jakobsen with number 57 in the colours of Uno-X. Also a name to take into account for this finish. Still a lot of riders there for Uno-X. At least 4 in that first group. There's some riders who got dropped earlier on.
Now back to the front, please.
Yes.
Or might be one of the local lads in here that they want to show.
5 riders of Uno-X at the front, including their sprinter Søren Bjerenskyld. So that is a good way to start. We also have 2 riders of the Polish team still here. The Mazowskie, Serge Polski. Those are the riders in the blue jersey. Human Powered Health, they have another Banasek. They have 2 Banaseks on the other Polish team. But the fastest one is the Polish national champion. He's racing for Human Powered Health. Anilkowski, of course, their sprinter, was part of a crash. So I don't expect him to be part of this first group. But we have Sukowski there when it comes to national champions, the man from Canada. But it will come down to the climb of the Skovsvjeibakken. That is coming up in 1.5 kilometers from here. That really narrow and very steep road. If you want to try something like this man did in 3rd position when he won the Danish national title, he went on that climb and arrived solo at the finish line, about almost a minute ahead of the runner-up.
Just looking at Jakobsen, he's about halfway down this group. Pedersen right towards the front. Looks as if Uno-X trying to keep this tempo high as well. As you said, they've got Warenscold in there, just turning left. And then they'll swing right again, and then we'll go up this very steep climb. So Pedersen, Skelmos in perfect position here. Just looking a little bit further down. Jakobsen is a little bit further back. I think this is a play now for Tom Squinch to make it hard now for Jakobsen, because he's the big danger.
But this climb is a little bit too short to get rid of Jakobsen. This is Kasper Pedersen still at the front. Great work there. And we have a little bit of a gap. The man from Uno-X, Luma-Levi, I think.
Mads Pedersen is riding like a man possessed. You know, there'll be gaps absolutely everywhere. Skelmos is on the wheel, so I think there'll be some gaps appearing, and that effort there from Mads Pedersen maybe have thwarted some riders thinking about attacking on that climb.
Well, that was one opportunity. There goes Skelmose with another attack. Almost the same place he went at the Danish National Championship. He knows this course really, really well. Søren Kjær Andersen following. William Luma-Levi. Brent van Moer is one of the riders. Magnus Kort. Because Eriksson there in the distance, the Swedish national champion. I think Tobias Lund Andersen is the man for DSM, also part of this first group.
A definite gap open. This is split in two, this front group. But unfortunately, Mads Pedersen is just in that small group just behind.
.3 kilometers to go. We still have one more climb to go, but that is a lot easier in terms of gradient. It's slightly longer, but it's only 3.3%. So to launch an attack, it might be a little bit more challenging. It's 3K out from the finish line, so it's a little bit closer, but they let a little group come back. Hard to see if that is indeed Fabio Jakobsen. It is indeed Fabio Jakobsen. He's coming back, the European road champion. Having a fantastic day. Remember, his first race back since abandoning the Tour de France. Of course, that horrible crash on the circuit of Nogaro, stage 4, I think it was. And then, yeah, he had to abandon the race. It was no use continuing. This is his first race back, and he seems to have recovered perfectly and happily so as well. But Mads Pedersen has got energy for at least 3 riders today.
I tell you what, Jakobsen has done well in my book today. he's been in the right place, a little bit too far back there, but he had to kind of shut his own gap there coming across to this front group. So he's still in it. It's what he's got left in the legs. He's still got, you know, at least one teammate with him to kind of try and help out. But Tom Squeens just at the back there, Mads Pedersen just in front of him, a very, very small group.
Attack from Alpecin de Koning. Straight on the wheel is, I think it's Andreas Stokbro. No, he's a little bit further back. That's what Pedersen is there. Skelmos is straight through it. We have Eriksson, Brent van Moer. A lot of riders here for the UnoX team. Of course, this is kind of their home race.
Tell you what, Michael Valgren is at the back of this group in the pink
that
jersey.
is lovely. Everybody would love a Michael Valgren comeback win. Very active last week in Tour de l'Ain. Oof.
Oh.
74 is Alexander Kamp.
And here he comes.
Yeah, this kind of blocked there by Lund Andersen, Tobias Lund of DSM, but that was a move there. And now it's Skelmose on the other side of the road trying to follow this move of Alpecin de Koning. Very interesting final there. Look at the faces, look at the effort there. And Skelmose, well, almost effortless there, back onto the wheel at the front. This was the last hill where you could possibly try something. Yeah, flick of the elbow there, and now it's Skelmose, and this is a dangerous moment.
Yeah, we looked around, look at the European champion now, Jakobsen. He's been distanced, he's just coming across the top of the climb now, and he's got a teammate just in front of him. But then again, there's another gap to the group in front. I think that's what Skelmose was trying to do there. He wants to try and kind of keep the pressure on. He knows that Mads Pedersen is on the wheel just behind, so I still think this will come back together. It looks as if Brent van Moer is gone now. Yeah. No, it's not.
Vermeers.
Vermeers.
Florian Vermeers, runner-up in Paris-Roubaix. And of course, a fantastic rider. Now Skelmose is basically glancing at the two riders of UnoX to try and do something. Florian Vermeers, he is the kind of rider who can pull this off, but 5.5k from the line, it seems that it's still quite far, and glancing over his shoulder is never a good sign of confidence that you feel that this is going to be a winning move.
No, it's a good attack though. I think it was at the perfect time, but unfortunately Skelmose is riding for Mads Pedersen now, and behind you've got Soudal Quickstep trying to bring Jakobsen back. So unfortunately, it could have happened if it was a different scenario and the teammates weren't there to be able to help, but it's Skelmose that's trying to kind of ride Vermeers down now, getting a little bit of help from others. So I do think it will come back to a very small, reduced sprint.
It's now Lucas Eriksson at the front, followed by the Danish champion Skelmose, almost back to Florian Vermeers. The CH is silent. It's not pronounced, it's just Vermeers. Nope. Abandon attack. 4.5k to go. It was a little bit too early. It was a good attack, like you said, Brian, but it was a little bit too soon. And Jacobs is back.
Yep. Søren Kragh just trying to push on a little bit now. Warren's called as well. It gets a little bit technical here, and without the numbers, I think Skelmose has come to rescue again for Mads Pedersen, who's now propped onto the wheel. Jakobsen, who lets the wheel go. So fun and games between the two top sprinters here. Plenty of opportunities, moves. But I think Skelmose is the man that's going to retrieve things.
It's clear that the four strongest teams in the race today are UnoX, Alpecin de Koning, Lidl Trek and Soudal Quickstep. Great effort there. There seems to be a little bit of indecisiveness there. And now it's up to Skelmose again. Oh, he's glancing over his shoulder as well, looking at Casper Pedersen.
Yeah, he's already been doing a little bit of an effort anyway. This is he's starting to get into the kind of technical side here of this course. It kind of opens up again once we get into the last kilometre, but a good effort here from the man from Uno X. And you know, if there's any more hesitation,
it might be successful.
Stealing honours. Yep.
This might be a successful one. He was 13th in the individual time trial in Stirling only a couple of days ago, so just outside of the top 10 for Søren Varenskjold. Of course, he finished the Tour de France, is the Norwegian time trial champion. So if somebody can really put on a great effort against himself and against the clock, it's him. He won that time trial in the Tour of Belgium as well, 15.2 in Beveren. And if you know that we only have 16 kilometers of time trialing here to go on Saturday, he is one of the 16 kilometers, 16.1. He's one of the riders to look at when it comes to quite possibly going for the overall win as well, Søren Varenskjold.
He's got the form, like you say, he's good time trial on him, and you know, if he takes bonus seconds as well. But you know, one rider here from Soudal, Quick Step, and then you've got Skelmose. Is there enough firepower to be able to bring all this back? It's looking doubtful now.
He's just going to bridge across Skelmose. We still have Casper Pedersen there in second position. This is a promising attack, and Skelmose knows this. 2.2 kilometers to go. This man can actually pull this off if Skelmose doesn't get a little bit of help.
Yep, Skelmose is getting some help from one of the riders from Soudal Quickstep, but the two riders are not closing this down. So unless something else happens, this is your winner.
Great effort here. He's crested that hill, now is profiting from the downhill. Søren Varenskjold, of course, a fantastic rider. He is the former world champion in the time trial, in the under 23s, of course. Won himself a stage in the Tour of Belgium already. 3 wins on his palmares as a pro. He also won the Saudi Tour stage 3 all the way back in February. So fantastic rider. 1.4. Yeah, this is a downhill sector, and that final part is flat. There's not really a lot of wind to speak of. He's had the hardest part of the local circuit behind him right now, and 7 seconds with just over a kilometer to go is looking very promising there for Søren Varenskjold. Only 23 years of age. It's done. It's done. It's not. This is not a chase anymore.
A lot of hesitation. Skelmose couldn't do it. It looks like Casper Pedersen from Soudal was the other rider. The two of them couldn't make it. Couldn't close the gap. He went at the right time through the technical area, wasn't losing any time, and now starts to gain as the peloton are now looking for second place.
Yeah, just under a kilometre to go here for Søren Varenskjold. He's 23, glancing over his shoulder. Maybe he hears through his in-ear communication that there's a lot of looking at each other in the chasing group. But I also think, well, the stage is gone for the chasers, but also take into account that this man is taking a little bit of time on the competition, not only by winning the stage, but also by 10 bonus seconds. And this could prove absolutely vital to the overall classification of the Tour of Denmark 2023. There's a late attack, a late search there by Christian Sparaglia and his teammates, but it looks to be too little, too late. Inside of the finish cameras, he's glancing over his shoulder again. Søren Varenskjold, you can see the fatigue there. It's been a hard stage, just 170 kilometers, but very wet. But he's got it. A great win there, and very important for a Danish sponsor. Luckily for the rest of them, the gap is only quite minor, with Jacobsen Pedersen there sprinting for the remainder of the bonus seconds. We have Lund Andersen there as well, and Vito Braat is the 5th rider across the line. The gap in the end, Brian, was really quite small, but that little moment of indecisiveness in the chasing group was all it took.
Yep, great ride by him. He took his opportunity. They did have numbers 5 going on to the final lap there, and you know, he's done this before earlier in the year, and it's been a long wait to his second move there. He packs a bit of a sprint. He's got a good time trial. He's a bit a similar rider to Mads Pedersen,
Yep.
who finished in third place
same
there.
physique.
But yeah, so hats off to him, taking that opportunity, taking the victory, and a good victory for Uno X, and they'll carry this for potentially a few days. Potentially they want to try and win it, because we've got a little bit up and down, and this man, I think, is he's done one of the rides of the day. 2 punctures, come back. He's in exceptional form. He'll really want to win this. But Uno X have got a grasp of this race in the first stage. But like you just mentioned there, it's not over. There'll be other opportunities, but well done.
Take us through the final once more, Brian. We get the final 500 meters. Of course, the decision was at 3 and a little bit.
Well, this is an easy one. 500 metres to go. You've got one rider in the lead, Warrenskov, who just had to. But in the background, Sparagli was, Alpecin, DeConnick were decided that they don't want to lose. Soren Krauw in there. It's, this is the man you don't want to give too much time to. There's other faster sprinters here, but the other teams are sitting back because of Jakobsen and Mads Pedersen were there. But you got to remember, if you're here to win the race, you need to close this gap down, and I think that's what DeConnick or Alpecin DeConnick decided to do. Okay, they missed out in the bonus second and third, but it still keeps Soren Krauw, who looks as if he's on good form. It keeps him in the race of trying to win overall.
It is the smallest finish line I have ever seen in my life. It looks like one single row of tape. Very, very tiny one, and also a white shot would have been nice at the finish line.
Yeah, I agree.
But we already knew that he was up front. And like I said, Uno X is a company very active in both in Denmark and Norway. So yeah, for the local team, we always think as Uno X as a Norwegian team, but they're also very Danish in terms of sponsorship. So this is a big thing for them. Yeah, we have stage 1 under our belt with Aalborg, 169.9 kilometers. The winner, Søren Werenskjold, just a few seconds ahead of Jakobsen and Mads Pedersen. Tomorrow we go again with another challenging finish circuit. Waiting for the top 10, there it is. Søren Werenskjold wins 6 seconds ahead of the competition, plus the 10 bonus. On Jakobsen, Pedersen, Andresen, Vito Braat, Andersen, Kragh Andersen, Kolse Changisi, Sebastian Nielsen, Andreas Stockbro, and Luca Kolnagi of the Green Project Bardiani CSF team. So, 12 seconds on Mads Pedersen today. We'll see on Saturday whether that is a winning margin. But tomorrow, Brian Smith and I, Jose Bain, will be back with stage 2 from Kjellerup to Silkeborg, the shortest of the road stages. So, Brian, what do we take away from this very first stage of the Tour of Denmark? Oh, we'll first get a highlights reel. I'll take that first and then ask your opinion after that. Here we go, 169.9 kilometer start and finish in Aalborg. We had a breakaway of 6 riders, kept under tight control of the Lidl Trek team with Jacopo Mosca and Julien Bernard. Dit is Mads Østergaard. He went off the front to get the points towards the King of the Hills jersey, and the 5 other riders from the breakaway with Grignard, Rodolfo, Krul, Ekholm and Niklas Pedersen. The weather, a lovely little bit of rain for the garden and a little bit too much for the bike race. But Mads Østergaard, he took this category 2 sprint on the Kriegbakken. He also took the first category sprint that came 15 kilometers before this one, meaning he gets the white and green polka dot jersey here in the PostNord Danmark Rund, or the Tour of Denmark. Due to the weather, a lot of flat tires, especially that lovely little bath there And he was not the only one with flat tyres. Jacobsen had one, Miss Peterson had one by this moment. Quickly needs a new wheel, but the gap to the 5 chasers is quite small. But Miss Østergaard managed to catch back on, which was a monumental achievement. They were not waiting for him. They thought, well, you attacked us, never mind, we'll just ride on, the 5 of us here with Peterson at the front. But he managed to come back, which was great by the man in the blue jersey and the black helmet of the Leopard TOGT Pro Cycling team. Gap down to a minute as we enter the local circuit. We had a nasty crash here with a man who'd just been on the attack with Rittersgaard. We also had an abandon of Mauri van Zevenand already. Not involved in the crash, but abandoning nonetheless the man for Soudal Quickstep. And then on the local circuit, very active teams were Alpes in de Koning, Soudal Quickstep, Lidl Trek, Lotto Destiny and UnoX. With a little bit of an attack here by Søren Werenskjold. It's actually a kilometre longer than I thought it was. 4K from the finish line. Schelmoze sees the danger. This man has got a mean time trial on him. Won the time trial in the Tour of Belgium. Schelmoze tries, Casper Pedersen tries as well for Soudal Quickstep. But there's not an organised chase. And then this is a very dangerous rider to give a few seconds, if it's only a handful of seconds here for Søren Werenskjold. But it is enough. Inside of the finish camera, glancing over his shoulder, not seeing any other rider, and knowing that this first stage is going to be his 4th season win already, starting in the Saudi Tour, winning in the Tour of Belgium, winning the Time Trial Championships in Norway, and now the first stage in the Tour of Denmark, meaning that tomorrow we will see him in blue. Søren Werenskjold.